Once again, I want you to save the date. That is Saturday, November 9th, because that's the day that the CBD Health and Wellness Expo is happening at the Ventura County Fairgrounds in Ventura, California. Now they're going to have some free health screenings down there. And it's also going to be a great opportunity for you to talk to some of the CBD vendors. Kind of put them to the test. Find out exactly what their products are about and how they can help you. Again, that is Saturday, November 9th at the Ventura County Fairgrounds in Ventura, California. Now, once again, I want to talk about CBDA, which is raw CBD. And it's considered raw because it still has that acid molecule attached to it. You see, a lot of times when commercial hemp is processed for the oil, it gets heated up. And that heat basically destroys that beneficial, delicate acid molecule. Now, when this happens, when that acid molecule evaporates off, it's called decarboxylation. And that's what you get with a lot of CBD that's on the market today. You get that decarboxylated CBD. Which is a shame because we're just starting to recognize and realize how much more beneficial that raw CBD is, that CBD when it still has that acid molecule attached to it. And that raw CBD is exactly what you get in every product from 101 CBD. And because that raw CBD is derived from hemp, that means that there's very little problem having it shipped worldwide. So go over to 101cbd.org, order yourself and your pet some CBD oil today. And at checkout, don't forget to use the coupon code IMGS25 to get 25% off of that order. And if you're a cultivator and you're looking for new strains for your growing operation, take a look at the work that's being done over at Canna Queen Genetics. That's where you'll find the Bubblegum Princess, the Fire and Ice, and the Aphrodisiac, just to name a few. So go to cannaqueengenetics.com to get those new flavors in your cannabis garden today. All right. Now let's start the show. Well, everyone, welcome back. This is episode 82 of the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. I'm your host, Alex. I hope everybody's doing awesome today. Now, a little later, I'm going to be talking to Alan, who is the founder from Strainly.io, which is a little bit like a cannabis social media site, but not really. But we'll talk a little more about that later. Now, first, I want to welcome Sespe Creek Collective because they are a new sponsor of the show. They're going to be sponsoring the Strain of the Week. That's going to be super cool. Something else I wanted to mention is that I went ahead and re-edited last episode, episode 81, where I talked to Dr. Villalpando about vaping. Typically, before I put an episode out, I'll listen to the whole thing all the way through. I didn't really do that this time. I listened to most of it, but not all of it. And I figured, oh, it sounds great, put it up. And the next day when I went to one of the podcast players to actually listen to it, I listened to the whole thing, and some of the audio sounded jumbled up. It sounded like me and the doc were like talking over each other, like we weren't waiting for the other person to finish their thought. And I had the damnedest time trying to figure out why, and I kind of have an idea. I was messing around with the stereo tracks, and one of them got like a second and a half cut out of it, which shifted the whole stereo track over, which is why the conversations like double up towards the end, or we talk over each other. So I went back and just recut the whole thing, so it sounds a lot better. I get it if you turned it off early because the audio sounded bad. Do me a favor, though. It sounds a lot better now. Go over there and take a listen to it. It's a lot of great information, though, about vaping. What else? So you know what? Lately, I've been listening to this rapper. He goes by the name of Lyrics Born. I love his stuff, man. He's got great beats. I love his lyrics. What really tripped me out was when I looked him up on YouTube, because he's got this really deep bass voice. When I looked him up on YouTube, it was this Asian dude. Totally wasn't expecting it. Not that I was racially profiling. Well, no, I guess I was. Anyways, wasn't expecting an Asian dude to sound that funky. If you get a chance, look him up. Once again, Lyrics Born. Pretty fucking cool. Now I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about YouTube. And mostly about the show's YouTube channel. So, I'm trying to get a URL for the YouTube channel that matches the show title. Either something like In My Grow or In My Grow with Alex. Don't know yet. So do me a favor, when you're on YouTube, looking up whatever you're doing over on YouTube, just take a moment, search for In My Grow Show with Alex. The show channel should come up. Just hit subscribe, and then you can go back to whatever you were doing. Because right now the URL for the show on YouTube says YouTube/channel/ like the whole fucking alphabet. And I just want something that's very specific to the show. But for that, like I was saying, I need you to go over and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please. Thank you. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the real meat of the show, into the rest of the show, is just do yourself a favor. Double check your dates when you plan something. Okay, so I had tickets to go to this Latino Business Expo. And it's put on by the same guys that are putting on the CBD Expo that I'm going to be part of in a couple of weeks. Shout out to Adam and Richard. So I wanted to go, not so much because I'm into, the Latino business scene, but mostly because it was going to be held in the same building that the other expo that I'm going to be a part of is going to be held in. So I wanted to go there, shoot some video, shoot some audio, get a better idea of what I have to work with there. So that's the reason why I planned on going. So Saturday morning, I get it together. Well, at least I think I get it together, right? Grab my tickets. I even recruited my brother to go with me. And we go down there. We drive out to the fairgrounds. And there's a gun show going on, which that right there kind of threw me, because the first thought in my head was, why do they got guns around the Mexicans? Is that like a veiled thing? Are they trying to tell us something? So then I was all, wait a minute. I checked my tickets, and no, the event was for October 24th, not October 26th. The event I wanted to go to happened on Thursday, which that right there kind of threw me just to start with. Because how are you going to put on a Latino Business Expo on a Thursday? Every Latino I know is working on Thursdays. You want to put something like that on a Saturday? And that's where my problem started, was because I assumed it was going to be on a Saturday. Since my event's on a Saturday, I go, all their events are on a Saturday. No, not true. So, what's the lesson there? Well, I think it's that you can be a stoner, but please be the stoner that double checks the dates. Don't be like me and just go, yeah, I'm just going to show up. I assume things are like this. Nope. All right, now that I've gotten through my personal announcements, let's get to the rest of the show. Let's do the strain of the week. And today, I'm going to give it up to the Lemon Jack. That's right. Now, I'm a big fan of the Jack hair, and that's the big reason why I picked the Lemon Jack. Because it is a cross of the Jack hair and the Lemon Kush. Oh, the Lemon Kush. And this was put together by Henry's Original. I like Henry's. They put together a pretty good product. Now, the Lemon Jack does have this strong lemony citrus smell. It also smells a little sweet, like an overripe mango or like an overripe pineapple. You ever smell that? It smells a little bit like that too. And then towards the end, it's got this nice little gassy, fulie note to it, little taste to it also, man. Now, this flower turned out to be really great for daytime use. It wasn't a heavy hitter the way that Death Star OG was. This was really smooth, really nice, as I said, to get things done, helped me focus, gave me energy, still got euphoric, but I was able to just stay on task. It wasn't like punch me in the face, down, I'm high. No way, man, I could get stuff done with this Lemon Jack. It was beautiful. And the only downside was that it did give me a bunch of cottonmouth. So, keep your coffee or your soda close, man. Other than that, keep your eye out for the Lemon Jack. And I picked that up at Sespe Creek Collective in beautiful Ojai. You can find them at 408 Bryant Circle, Suite C. Pick yourself up some of this Lemon Jack while they still have it. And while we're on the subject, November 6th from 3 to 6:30 p.m., Sespe Creek is going to have the Terpene Oxygen Bar, which is a terpene-infused oxygen bar that features terpene oils from blended flowers. That sounds like it's going to be awesome. I've never done such a thing. I'm going to go down there and check that out. Once again, that is November 6th. All right, now a word about my social media. This past week, I did put up a midweek update. It's a little video that I put up on Instagram. I'm thinking that's going to be a regular thing. Just, just another way for me to say hello to everybody. That's all. Let you know what's kind of coming up. Just as I finished making that video, I did realize I forgot to mention some things that I wanted to mention. But, it's a work in progress. All right, now let's move on to the report from the Cannabis Frontline. The first article I'm going to read I found over at Normal. That is normal.org. Go over there, get informed, become a member. And the title reads, Marijuana Legalization Not Associated with Adverse Spillover Effects in Neighboring States. Starts off, adult use marijuana legalization laws are not associated with any significant increase in cannabis-related criminal activity in neighboring states or counties, according to a federal-funded report published by the nonprofit Justice Research and Statistics Association. The study, entitled Measuring the Criminal Justice System Impact on Marijuana Legalization and Decriminalization Using State Data. Wow, that's a long title, man. Assess the impact of adult use regulation schemes on criminal justice resources for both legalized states and neighboring non-legalization states. Okay. Goes on to say the goal of this project was to analyze quantitative and qualitative data in 11 target states to address 3 research questions. Okay, 1. What are the impacts of marijuana legalization and decriminalization on criminal justice resources in states where cannabis is legal? 2. What are the impacts on criminal justice resources in states that border the states that have legalized marijuana? And 3. What are the impacts of marijuana legalization and decriminalization on drug trafficking through northern and southern border states? They determined analysis of the available data suggested that 1. Legalization and recreational use of marijuana resulted in fewer marijuana-related arrests and court cases. 2. Legalizing marijuana did not have a noticeable impact on indicators in states that border those that legalized. And 3. There were no noticeable indications of an increase of arrest related to transportation or trafficking offenses in states along northern and southern borders. Now that's an important thing to think about, because a lot of states that don't have legal cannabis, whether, medical or recreational, they always say that other states, neighboring states, legalizing is going to just cause a whole bunch of criminality and criminal activity to enter their states. When in actuality, when they're looking at the data, that's not true. There is no spike. It's the same. It's the same level, apparently. But the great thing is, the very last thing this report says is this. While the report was carried out using funding from the National Institute of Justice, this resource has not been published by the U.S. Department of Justice. This resource is being made publicly available through the Office of Justice Program's National Criminal Justice Reference Service. Any analysis, conclusions, or opinions expressed herein are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the views, opinions, or policies of the Bureau of Justice Statistics or the U.S. Department of Justice. There you go. The U.S. Department of Justice doesn't want their name anywhere on this thing. They don't want to be associated with, handing the cannabis industry some actual facts, that we can use to deschedule cannabis. Because all those things that people were saying, that there's just going to be overspill of criminality and crime from state to state, just isn't happening. So, beautiful. I love it. All right. Now, next, I'm going to talk a little more about what I'm learning, what's going on in Mexico with their legal cannabis situation. There are 2 reasons why I'm so interested in this. 1, I'm Mexican, and that's the motherland. 2, it's going to be a trip when both America's northern and southern neighbors have federally legal cannabis. That's going to be really interesting to see how, American drug policy dances around these things. I don't understand what the hesitation is, what the fear is, but whatever, there it is. Okay, so Mexico's law is starting to take shape. I like a couple of things in there, some of the things I don't like. All right, first let's start off with what's actually going to be legalized. It is recreationally, which would include personal use, shared use among members of associations, and commercial purposes. It's also going to be legal medically, pharmaceutically, therapeutically, and palliative. Mexico is also going to create the Mexican Cannabis Institute, and they're going to be in charge of licensing. The licenses that they're going to be given out are going to be for cultivation, transportation, sales, and export and import in compliance with international treaties that cover only medical cannabis and scientific use. Oh, so they're not going to be able to import or export for recreational. Interesting. So that means all of the rec cannabis that's going to be in Mexico is going to be Mexican grown. That's kind of a funny story inside, but anyways. All right, moving on. It says, with the aim to prohibit vertical integration, a single person or company wouldn't be able to have more than one type of license. That prohibition would also apply to partners, subsidiaries, shareholders, and certain family members. Whoa. Okay. But a single licensee may have more than one license of a single type. All licenses would be non-transferable, which would limit opportunities for mergers and acquisitions. All right, now let's move down to home growing. It says here, up to 4 flowering psychoactive plants as well as the harvest of those plants would be allowed per adult. Plant and harvest must remain within the household of the grower. Users wouldn't be required to apply for a license but be granted a permit. Huh? Home growers would need to prove the legal origins of seeds or clones. Well, I have a problem with that. Okay, well, what if I find a seed inside like a bag of weed that I'm smoking? I can't, I don't have documentation on where that came from and I'm caught growing it. Seems like that right there is just a little too wide open for corruption. What would stop somebody enforcing this law to say, hey, you don't have the right paperwork, I'll make this go away with the right bribe? I don't know, a little too wide open for me. And that's just some of what the cannabis law is going to look like in Mexico. Like I said, hopefully by the beginning of the year 2020. And that, my friends, is the report from the Cannabis Frontline. Now next, I'm going to play a conversation that I had with Alan, and he is the founder of Strainly.io. If you don't know what that is, do yourself a favor, go over there, check it out, especially if you're a breeder, a cultivator, or someone who just really likes to look at cannabis pictures. Go over there and check it out. Now I'm glad me and Alan finally got it together to have this conversation, because we've been going back and forth for about 6 months. Something always came up, either on my side or on his side, and it just finally came together about a week ago. And the conversation is mostly just talking about what Strainly is. So I did use the Zoom app to record this conversation. I've never used it before. And because of that, there is a little bit of a lag time, like from when we started talking to where my equipment started recording it. So it does sound like the recording starts in the middle of something, but you didn't miss a lot. It's just basically me finishing asking him what is Strainly, and he just starts describing what it is. So hang tight, I'm going to put on music for a little bit, and then I'm going to play that conversation for you.
Come up with a safe platform to connect growers and breeders, nurseries, and eventually, equipment providers, to put it simply, to empower growers and just to make it easier for everyone to have safe access to everything you need to grow. And also, as a consequence of this collaboration through this safe platform, to contribute to preserving biodiversity when it comes to cannabis. And the main concern that I had when I came up with this idea is, we are based in Canada. I'm Canadian, and I've always been bothered by what happened in agriculture during the past decades, where we've seen a gradual privatization of crops, and now farmers have to buy seeds from large corporations every year. Proprietary varietals when it comes to corn, barley, pretty much everything we consume, and it sort of create a dependency of the farmers on those large corporations, and a lot of the value that's created by farming goes up to those corporations. And I thought it was, excuse my French, was fucked up. It's not. Something's broken. Something's not right. And so I've been bothered for 10 years by this when I discovered that. And then being in Canada, legalization became official a year ago. And this week, actually, it's been a year already. And when they started, pushing this legalization here in Canada, I was like, wait a minute, same thing is going to happen with cannabis. Today, we have hundreds, thousands of varietals, more or less stable, you may argue, but we have a lot of diversity in terms of the phenotypes and the genetics available, and what is going to happen. And I was afraid that there would be a streamlining of genetics, the consolidation of biodiversity into the hands of very few powerful corporations. And so I decided to come up with a platform to just support those small growers, small farmers, and anyone who has genetics and want to have safe access to genetics to just collaborate in an easy and safe way. So that's what Strain is about. You can come and source genetics. You can search for seeds, for clones, for pollen, even if you have a breeding project in mind, for tissue cultures. And you can also offer your packs, your heirloom seeds, your clones, your pollen that you've just harvested, and help out other growers and breeders, basically. So that's what we are about, yeah.
So now, just to be clear, Strainly doesn't really sell anything on the site. It connects breeders and cultivators and patients with cultivators or breeders as well.
Absolutely. Yep. We don't have any inventory. We don't have any inventory. We just, we're busy enough creating and maintaining and supporting the platform. And everything you find on Strainly is offered by our members. We don't offer anything. We don't ship anything except that we offer that safe platform for people to contribute, collaborate. And we've been doing so for 3 years now. And although we are based out of Canada, the majority of users are in the US and in Canada, and also a little bit in Europe, Spain, Netherlands, UK.
So now, one of the attractive things that I saw about it was that you only accept legal breeders and growers from either legal states or legal countries where cannabis, is legal either medically or recreationally.
Yeah, so I think it's important to insist that we are as inclusive as we can be. As I've just explained, the goal with Strainly, the philosophy is to be as inclusive as possible, and to be to have an as big as possible community of users that collaborate, because I think in the end we need to have those genetics. Whether landrace out of India, we have people out of India and Pakistan as well, in Africa as well, in South America as well. So you can find some landrace genetics from those regions on Strainly. So we want to be as inclusive as possible. At the same time, if you want to sustain, if you want to stay alive, as a platform, you've got to be you've got to have a responsible message. We are legally operating business in Canada. We welcome anyone in legal states in the US, but that would be I think that wouldn't be very responsible to tell people in the US, come on Strainly and just expose yourself, even though you are not in the legal state. That would be a little bit selfish and short-sighted to say so. So the message to people who are I'll put it like this, states that have yet to be legalized, because I think it's going to happen. I'm very optimistic. But the people who are in such states, usually the message is, we strongly advise that you comply with your local regulations. We don't condone any activity that would put you in trouble, because that wouldn't be very responsible, honestly, and for those people in the first place. But that being said, I think it's a matter of time, months, couple years before cannabis is legal at the federal level in the States, and there is no coming back, if you ask me. Some people would argue it's never going to happen, but honestly, I think it's going to happen. And when that happens, all those people who are in states that were illegal are going to be definitely welcome to join. I mean, if you want to browse and explore and see what Strainly has to offer, and you're not in a legal state, you're welcome to just browse the site and see what there is if you're curious. But I wouldn't advise anyone to engage in trades and activities that would expose them to law enforcement, generally speaking. That wouldn't be a responsible thing to do, I believe. Especially, that would be very easy to say, being here in Canada, legal at the federal level, and tell people, yeah, go break the law, and it's on you. That's not how I see things. So.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to put out there for people, like you were saying, especially if they're, especially since the status that cannabis has in America. Even though some states are legal, it's still illegal to take them across state lines as far as if it's cannabis. Hemp is a completely different issue, but as far as cannabis,
Absolutely.
the drug form of it, it's still illegal to take it across state lines, and everybody needs to, just be careful, know the local law, and, understand that it may not be available legally for you.
No, absolutely, and that's a shame. It's again, I think it's a matter of time, and I can't wait to see what happened in Canada. Federal legalization happened in the U.S., and I think it's going to be a domino effect after that, because the federal law enforcement in the U.S. is powerful and scares a lot of people outside of the U.S. And I believe, when it's going to be legal in the U.S., a lot of other countries are going to fall into legalization, in my opinion. And but when it comes to shipping across state lines, again, I want to be careful. And as you said, I advise everyone to be careful. But some people argue that now with the Farm Bill, that's almost 1 year old as well in the U.S., that make hemp legal at the federal level. A lot of people argue that it's not so risky now to ship seeds across state lines, because what is the difference between a cannabis and hemp seed, right? It's very hard to make the difference between the two, and especially because the main difference, legally speaking, between hemp and cannabis is the THC concentration. And honestly, when you have a seed, there's no THC in either hemp or cannabis seeds. So some people feel comfortable shipping across state lines. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't think the fear is so much seeds, but actually shipping clones.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's different. But the same argument would be valid.
I mean, seeds.
There's no THC in clones. So.
Right, but but some states are, their ears prick up and they get all kind of weird when they see any kind of actual plant material. They see a leaf with 5 blades on it, and they're like, "Wait, we don't know. We don't care what it is. We're not sure what it is."
Absolutely.
So yeah, and that's and that's a really interesting thing about the Farm Bill, though, is because it has thrown this other layer of confusion into the federal level of it. But it also seems like it's a positive tool that's going to help finally push federal, at the very least, I'm hoping, federal descheduling. Because I just envision the government descheduling it and then getting out of the way.
Yeah, I agree. Because now, when it comes to enforcement, it's a nightmare. I mean, for those, law enforcement agencies, generally speaking, to make the difference between what's legal, meaning hemp, and what's illegal, meaning cannabis. When you have, plant material in front of you, when it's buds, you can still go, test them in a lab, but still easier said than done. It takes time. But when you have plant material that don't contain any cannabinoids, meaning, don't contain any significant amount of cannabinoids like clone, immature plant, how do you make the difference, right? And so I would agree with you. That said, something maybe that I could add is we've just released an upgrade this week on Strainly, and in order to address that issue, where now we have a location search feature in order to sort of foster our members to search for genetics within their region, within their state. So the question of shipping across state lines can be addressed by just sourcing genetics within your own state. So if you're looking for clones and you want to play it safe, and you are based in California, you would do a location-based search in California for clones. So you're pretty sure that the clones you're ordering won't cross any state line.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really awesome, man.
that was
that's a great answer.
Yeah, that was needed. So
let me talk a little bit more about the hemp. Have you noticed more hemp seeds, hemp clones coming across Strainly in the last couple of months, or in this last year, actually?
Bit. Yeah, a little bit. Definitely not the majority of propagation material offered on Strainly, but yeah, as I said, we're inclusive. Definitely no reason to exclude hemp. At the end of the day, it's the same family of plants. I'll be very honest, and maybe something that I've never said. We are watching what's happening with psilocybin, with mushrooms as well, and I think here I'm making a bet. I believe that when cannabis is going to be legalized at the federal level, maybe the next thing that's going to happen, the questions that are going to arise are regarding mushrooms. And at the moment, it's still too early, way too early. But the day psilocybin is being legalized in some states or at the federal level, maybe Strainly is going to have a section for spores because it's medicine, and that might be helpful for patients to have access to spores and to be able to grow their own medicine at some point. In the same way, with the same philosophy we had when we launched Strainly 3 years ago. So why not, right? But that's for later. I think at the moment it's still too early to offer such a section on Strainly. But back to hemp, yeah, definitely. We're inclusive.
No, hey, man, I like where you're going with it, When it happens, yeah, I'll be looking out for it on Strainly.
Why not? I mean, again, still very early and definitely not the right time to do this because it's still too dark gray, I'd say.
No, but I'm glad someone's thinking about it, though. It's going to be needed. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, hopefully.
But hemp, yeah, there are some hemp seeds, hemp cuts being offered on Strainly, increasing number of farms joining and offering their seeds. It seems that there are some farmers have challenges sourcing hemp seeds, and they found Strainly as being an helpful tool for some of them. So really happy if it can help hemp farmers. Yeah.
Hey, so now I was over at Strainly. So when I was over there, Alan, I noticed that you guys had tier access, and I couldn't understand. I had trouble understanding what exactly the differences is between like the free access and the tiered access. What do I get for having a tiered access?
Sure. So again, the goal here, being inclusive. We don't want to put barriers to using Strainly. So basically, when you join Strainly, it's free. You can create you have to have an account to get in touch with other members, to connect with other members, to get involved in trades or conversations, private conversations with other members. The reason why you have to create an account for free is because we want to keep it safe. We want to be able to lock you out of the platform if you come here for the wrong reasons. If you're a scammer, if you come here to rip off people, we want to have a mean to keep you out and keep the place safe for everyone else. So that's the reason why. It's free. Again, we want to be inclusive. There are some people who are here to source genetics that are adapted to their medical prescriptions. I think we should never forget that. It's, cannabis is medicine. It can be used for recreational purposes, but it's medicine for a lot of people. So it's free to use, to create an account and use Strainly. It's definitely free to use the tool to source your genetics. You can get some genetics for free through trades. There are even people who do giveaways. There are some genetics that are very affordable. There are some genetics that are very expensive too. We don't dictate prices. So, if you want some very desirable seed packs that are sold out everywhere, maybe it's going to be expensive. But, who are we to dictate the prices? So that's another topic, but I just wanted to put it out there. And then you can also offer, after you get 3 positive reviews, and we are able to confirm that you were here for the good reasons, you've been sort of vetted by some other members who've been here before you with 3 positive reviews, you can get your account verified and you can start posting your own genetics and offer your seeds, your clones, your equipment that you no longer use or that's brand new for whatever. You can start posting listings and offer genetics and equipment on Strainly for free. Again, that's for free. We don't take any commission on any transaction. We don't process payments. So that's the main reason why we don't take any commission. It's because we leave it up to our members to coordinate the payments and the shipping. And if you want to meet the other party in person, that's even better. That's community building. So we don't dictate anything on that end. Now, the tier memberships. Some members contacted us, after 1 year, I think, and said, hey, it'd be great if we had some features to get increased exposure. I want to be able to bump my listings to the top of the list every once in a while to get more requests, make more sales. I want to be on the home page to get more exposure. I want my listings to be featured in the newsletter to all your users every week, and that kind of things. And so we said, all right, okay, so we've got to come up with something. And that's where we came up with the tiered pricing. So you have the premium plan where you can bump your listings to the top of all of the listings 10 times a month. And you can feature 3 of your listings in the newsletter every month. And that plan is for $59 a month. You can use those features on a punctual basis, on a one-time basis, and you pay $5 to bump your listing, $10 to show it in the newsletter. If you go with the monthly plan, you get some savings, right? And then you have the pro plan, which is more bumps and more features in the newsletter, basically twice as more. And you get 3 of your listings featured on the home page. So even more exposure, more sales if you're a seed bank or if you're a breeder. And so you get some sort of return on your expense because you spend a bit of money with Strainly, but you make more sales at the end of the month. And then we have an advertiser plan, which is basically the last tier where you get banners across the site on some strategic places. So that still allows us to offer all of the features, the main features for free to all members with this inclusiveness philosophy. At the same time, that allows us to make a little bit of revenue in order to cover the operating cost, because running such a website, such a platform in a safe manner when it comes to cybersecurity, when you have tens of thousands of members using it on a daily basis, that's expensive. And at some point, we needed to make some revenue to cover the operating cost. So that's how it works.
Well, that's a really good option, especially like, let's say you're a very small breeder in a state here in the U.S. that just went legal, and you've got to find exposure somehow.
Yep.
That's wow, that's pretty cool, man. Right
yeah,
on.
and it came, and I think the request came from breeders, from Strainly users, as they were still using Instagram, and in parallel starting being curious, starting to use Strainly, and they were getting their Instagram pages, profiles shut down, then shadow banned, and so they were seeing their exposure on Instagram significantly reduced, like they were completely invisible and making fewer sales.
Yeah, a lot of people ran into that.
Yeah, and us included. Sometimes it's very hard to deal with social media when you are in the cannabis industry. So that's why we said, here, on Strainly, we won't shut you down, we won't ban you, and we even give you options to get increased exposure. The only reason you would get banned is if you come here to rip off people. So that's, but we're helping the cannabis community as opposed to Instagram making your life painful.
Yeah, and you guys truly are helping the community, because I was over there also, and I was reading through your blog posts, and one of the ones that caught my eye was you guys were explaining terminology of cannabis, and one of them was varietal type.
Yep.
Which I think is a great, I thought was a great post, especially if anybody was new to like buying seeds, to the scene of buying seeds, because there's a whole bunch of just jargon and vocabulary out there that's, it kind of seems like industry people are just telling industry people instead of like breaking it down to where regular people who aren't in the industry can actually understand it and say, oh, that's what that means. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want.
Absolutely. And so again, and I don't mean to say that we are the only ones with some valid information. You find some very valid information from different sources in the cannabis industry, but it's also easy to land on some completely some misinformation, misleading information.
There's a lot of bullshit out there.
Yeah. To put it bluntly, yeah. So I was we were like okay. And the reason, so I'll start from the beginning. That post was to sort of clarify a new feature that we added to Strainly six months or maybe a year ago, where people were very much listening to Strainly users' feedback and trying to upgrade and improve the site based on that feedback as much as possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes it's way too complicated. It has some other implications, and it's always a trade-off you have to find. But here, a couple people came with some very valid feedback. They said, there are now so many strains on Strainly. I have a hard time finding what I want when it comes to, I want some backcross strains, or I want some inbred line, or, I'm looking for heirloom or landrace, or feminized seeds, self-pollinated. And we said, okay, we've got to come up with some ways to find it in a structured way, right? Because sometimes you use a keyword, but the keyword is not bringing up anything relevant. So we said, okay, we're going to go with a filter. That's a little bit restrictive, where you have to check select when you post your genetics, you have to select whether it's heirloom, whether it's backcross, or whether it's straight hybrid or inbred line, etc. And so people started using it, and so it made the search easier for users. People who wanted landrace, they were checking the box landrace in the filters, and then suddenly that reduced the number of results to strictly landrace seeds. But then, it implied, I think, even before we received some questions about it, we said, okay, we've got to explain what this filter is about, right? Because some people are going to wonder, what is BX? What is IBF? What is the difference between heirloom and landrace? That's a question that comes often. What is the difference between heirloom and landrace?
So, real quick, what is the difference?
Sure. The main difference is landrace is endemic, is bound to a geography. Heirloom is more of is open pollinated as well, and has usually a comparable level of stability and homogeneity as landrace. But landrace would be that endemic strain that's from Colombia or from India or northern India, specific regions, and heirloom could be something that was crossed in California from maybe from some landrace strains, and then open pollinated for some generations outside. So I'd say it has some similarities with landrace, but it's not necessarily in its region of origin. So that's the main difference with landrace. I'm a little bit oversimplifying because it could be a very.
Well, no, of course, no, yeah. It's I just want the highlights, because we can get lost in the weeds about it.
Yeah, it's open pollinated outside, but
now open pollinated.
So the main similarity with landrace, but heirloom varieties have had some human intervention along the way. At some point in their history, there are some human. Brought the parents, from somewhere and did some crossing, and then they sort of let them behave as landrace again, if I may say, right? in a natural environment and open pollination. That's
right. So
to put it simply.
So a land race, it's been in one area for a long time, and it's just pollinated by the wind.
Yep.
Whereas an heirloom, it's been cultivated by, let's say, a family for, I don't know, 3 generations, but it's their specific strain.
Yep.
I guess. Okay. Anyways, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to distract you, but you were explaining this filter that you have on Strainly about all this.
No. I think I was done on this, and so basically, it's so do you have a filter on Strainly that allows you to search for heirloom, or distinctly landrace, or even inbred lines if this is what you're after, or backcross strains, or self-pollinated, and so that's one way of searching for genetics on Strainly. That's one of the filters that we have.
So when you see when someone sees a breeder up there that offers a hybrid F1,
yep,
what does that mean exactly?
First generation of a cross between 2 distinct parents, and to put it very simply. It could be the result of crossing 2 different landrace, of 2 different heirloom, or 2 different inbred lines, but distinct parents. And that's the first generation of progenies, basically. And then breeders, so there are different techniques, and I'm not a breeder by any means. I know the principles, but I'm definitely not your most qualified expert on the topic when you speak to very experienced breeders. They have a lot more knowledge, but if you then you can work a line and cross those progenies again, and go into F2s, F3s, F4, and to stabilize the line. And the result of stabilizing an hybrid line is what we call inbred lines, and that's supposedly more stable and more homogeneous. So you have more uniformity as you inbreed. But F1s are usually showing more vigor, but you would have to phenohunt because you will find some different phenotypes in F1 progenies. So,
right. Yep. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, man. I was just
no
throwing that out there.
Sure. No.
Hey, so I want to go back to something we were talking about before we started recording, and that's about the problems. Okay, it's about the bullshit regulations between how the U.S. sees cannabis and cannabis businesses from other countries, let's say specifically Canada, where, a lot of business people from Canada, you were telling me, have been banned in the U.S. as soon as they're discovered that they're in the legal cannabis business in Canada.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, it's been an issue for even before Canada legalized cannabis. I think, we've had some people from the Netherlands involved in the cannabis industry for a long time who have had some troubles at the U.S. border when they were flying in the U.S., and some people who abstained from going to the U.S. altogether because of those issues. But something that I think few of us anticipated a year ago when cannabis was legalized in Canada. And just as a reminder, most of us Canadians live less than 100 kilometers, less than 60 miles away from the border. All of the Canadian population is very close to the U.S. border. We're all in the south. It's already cold enough, so we don't go live in the north. And so I live like 40 minutes away from the U.S. border, right? So we go there, we go to the States quite often. And something we didn't anticipate was that being involved in any way, even if you don't touch the plant, being involved in any way in the legal cannabis industry in Canada is considered as supporting international drug trafficking by U.S. Federal law enforcement. That's literally what they say. You're supporting international narcos, basically. And
so just by that wording, it sounds like they're throwing you in with some cartels, man.
Yeah. Basically, that's, they don't make a significant difference between if you're working in the drug cartel in South America or if you're working in the legal cannabis industry in Canada. To be honest, according to the Federal to Homeland Security, to immigration officers in the U.S. at the border, there is no. I mean, personally, maybe they think otherwise, but the laws, the rules they have to enforce, it's pretty much what it is. And so, a few months after legalization, I go to the U.S. on a regular basis, and then I started, reading some press articles about some Canadians working in the cannabis industry, and one that really struck my mind was guys from Vancouver manufacturing press machines, to extract oil and from cannabis plants, and they were going to Washington State to pitch their technology to a U.S. Washington State-based company in the cannabis industry. They show up at the border. They are asked, "What are you doing?" And they reply openly, "We're a legally operating business here in Canada. We manufacture press machines." So we don't even touch the plant, right? We are engineers manufacturing machines. And we go to the States, meet a client. Okay, and what is the client doing? Oh, they work in the legal cannabis industry in Washington State. All right, secondary inspection, 6 hours interview, and at the end of which they got a lifetime ban from entering the US. So you can't go to the States anymore for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And then if you want to go to the States, you have to hire an immigration lawyer in Canada. So you apply to get a waiver every time you want to go, and you're not entitled to get this waiver. Sometimes maybe it's going to be accepted, sometimes it's not going to be accepted.
Fuck, what a hassle.
So yeah, no, it's, being, in Canada, everybody goes to the States once a year, right? At least, it's so close and it's so big and there's so much to do. You can't really be, even to connect. Even you take a flight to go to Mexico or anywhere in the Caribbean or in South America, chances are you're going to connect in the States. And you can't do this anymore when you get such a lifetime ban. So,
well, now, and another layer on top of that is, now with this in mind, does a business person, do you start lying about why you're entering the country, and then when they find out it's not true? I mean,
so you don't lie.
Where does it end?
The advice so it's a question here, because here, it's not an issue. You go to a bank, you open a bank account. You're in the cannabis industry, you go to a bank, you open a bank account, you speak openly. It's legal, right? We don't have to hide. There's no gray zone or whatever. So you speak of it with lawyers. There are, business events at law firms, cannabis-focused business events at law firms in downtown Toronto, downtown Montreal. Everybody speaks of it. It's a line of business like any other. Accounting firms have lines of business in the cannabis industry. But the advice by lawyers is when you show up at the border, so, whether you have a website like you're the founder of Strandly, like I am, you're at risk. You shouldn't say what you're doing. If you work for here in Quebec and Ontario, the retail stores, they are government stores. So you work for a company that's owned by the government. You're at risk. If you say, I'm a bud tender at the government store that sells cannabis in Quebec or in Ontario, you may face a lifetime ban. If you're an investor in some startups in the cannabis space in Canada, you may face a lifetime ban when you go to the States. You have to keep it low-key at all times. And the advice from lawyers usually is when you go to the States, so the best thing to do is first not keeping it low-key when you're in Canada, so you don't end up on any list and on any watch list when you show up at the border. And if you get questioned, when you show up at the border and it gets very specific about being involved in the cannabis industry, the best thing to do is not to lie, because if you lie and they figure it out, you'll get a lifetime ban anyway. So the best thing to do is you have the right to refuse to answer and to withdraw your application to get into the US. So you may say, you show up, you drive to the border, they start asking embarrassing questions you don't want to ask, and you may say, okay, I'm not discussing my day. And actually, I no longer want to go to the States today, and I go back to Canada, and they let you go back. But if you lie to get into the States and figure it out, you're in trouble.
Like you said, you're gonna catch that lifetime ban anyways.
Yep. So it's a problem. I think it's a temporary issue. Like I said, I'm very optimistic. It's going to be legalized at the federal level in the States in the next couple of years. But meanwhile, we all have to be very careful.
All we can do is wait. Wait and vote the right people in, and vote the right. Vote according to what we want cannabis to be.
Yeah, no, sure. If you're a U.S. citizen, you may say, I work in the cannabis industry. I think, they can't prevent you from getting back to your own country, right? But when you're a foreigner, I'm not entitled to go in the U.S., right? They let me in every time. But, if they decide that I'm no longer welcome because I'm breaking the law according to U.S. Federal regulations, so I won't get in.
Hey, Alan, thanks a lot for getting on the phone with me. I'm glad we could make this happen, brother.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do me a favor. Can you let the audience know where they can find Strainly or how they can find Strainly?
Sure. So it's www.strainly.io. For those who wonder, IO is a domain that's completely safe because we got the question. Some people said, is it a safe website, dark web? No, we're not a dark web website. .io is a type of domain that's completely legit. So Strainly.io, you Google Strainly, the first result you'll find is our website, our platform. On Instagram, Strainly.io as well. On Facebook, Strainly. On Twitter, _Strainly. And that's where we're most present. We also have tried to share some relevant content that's focused to the growers community on our blog. And so it's blog.strainly.io. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find us. And we are a growing community. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's for sure, everybody. Go over there and check it out. They do have a lot of great information on their blog posts. Alan, do me a favor. Don't hang up. Everybody else, I'm going to play a little bit of music, and I'll be right back. Well, everybody, that was Alan from Strainly.io. Want to thank him again for taking the time to talk to me. Plan on inviting him back real soon so we can talk about plant patents. He's got quite a bit to say about that. Don't forget, if you have a question or a comment about this episode, you can send me an email that is inmygrow@gmail.com or find me on Instagram @inmygrow. You can also find me on Cannabis at just Alex Robles. Well, mis amigos, my friends, that's all I've got to share with you today, which means that's the end of the show. If this episode has educated you, entertained you, or even given you a little escape from your day, go over to patreon.com/inmygrowshow and leave a financial donation. Now, those funds just help me pay for different hosting fees, buy equipment, and just makes it easier all around to put the show together. Now, if you don't want to go to Patreon, you can go to inmygrow.com, click on the support the show tab, and you can buy a t-shirt. Or, before you go shopping on Amazon, click on the Amazon link at the top of the show notes in this episode, because that just lets them know that we sent you. Now, if you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. Here's how you can help, though. Once again, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Subscribe to the website, inmygrow.com. And then go to YouTube, search In My Grow Show with Alex, and then hit the subscribe button there on that channel. And after you do all that subscribing, do me a favor, tell 3 other people about the show. That's the best way you can help. All right, everybody, enjoy your day. You know I love you all very much. And remember to always grow, learn, and teach.